Morena Koto, welcome to Tawa School Story Time for the 1st of May. Wow, we're into May already. Hey, it's great to see you all. Great that you're joining us for story time. Today, we are going to be reading part 1 of Jumanji. Now, many of you may have seen the movie, but it was actually based on this awesome book by one of my favorite authors, Chris van Ahlsburg. He's not just an author, he's an illustrator as well. So all the pictures in this book he has hand-drawn with pencils, and they're absolutely stunning pictures. So we're going to read Jumanji, then we're going to continue on with Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. We've lost Augustus Gloop, and we've lost Violet Beauregard. So now we're going to go for Ruka Salt, Mike TV, and Charlie left. But first up, we're going to read the first part of Jumanji by Chris van Ahlsburg. Now remember, Mother said, your father and I are bringing some guests by after the opera, so please keep the house neat. Quite so, added Father, tucking his scarf inside his coat. Mother peered into the hall mirror and carefully pinned her hat in place, then knelt and kissed both children goodbye. When the front door closed, Judy and Peter giggled with delight. They took all the toys out of the toy chest and made a terrible mess, but their laughter slowly turned to silence till Peter slouched into a chair. You know what? He said, I'm really bored. Me too, sighed Judy. Why don't we all go outside and play? Peter agreed, so they set off across the street to the park. It was cold for November. The children could see their breath like steam. They rolled in the leaves, and when Judy tried to stuff some leaves down Peter's sweater, he jumped up and ran behind a tree. When his sister caught up with him, he was nearly at the foot of the tree. And there he was looking at a long, thin box. What's that? Judy said. It's a game, said Peter, handing her the box. Jumanji, Judy read from the box, a jungle adventure game. Look, said Peter, pointing to a note taped to the bottom of the box. In a childlike writing were the words, free game, fun for some, but not for all. P.S. Read instructions carefully. Do you want to take it home? Judy asked. Not really, said Peter. I'm sure someone left it here because it's so boring. Come on, protested Judy. Let's give it a try. Race you home. So she ran off with Peter at her heels. At home, the children spread the game out on a card table. It looked very much like the games they'd already had. There was a board that unfolded, revealing a path of coloured squares. The squares had messages written on them. The path started in the deepest jungle and ended up in Jumanji, a city of golden buildings and towers. Peter began to shake the dice and play with the other pieces that were in the box. Put those down and listen, said Judy. I'm going to read the instructions. Jumanji, a young people's adventure game, specially designed for the bored and restless. Rule A. Player selects pieces and places in the deepest jungle. B. Player rolls dice and moves piece along path through the dangers of the jungle. C. First player to reach Jumanji and yell the city's name aloud is the winner. Is that all? Said Peter, sounding disappointed. No, said Judy, there's one more thing, and this is in capital letters. D. Very important. Once a game of Jumanji is started, it will not be over until one player reaches the Golden City. Oh, big deal, said Peter, who gave a bored yawn. Here, said Judy, handing her brother the dice. You go first. Peter casually dropped the dice from his hand. 7, said Judy. Peter moved his piece to the 7th square. Line attacks, move back 2 spaces, said Judy. Gosh, how exciting, said Peter in a very unexcited voice. As he reached for his piece, he looked up at his sister. She had a look of absolute horror on her face. Peter, she whispered, turn around very slowly. The boy turned in his chair. He couldn't believe his eyes. Lying on the piano was a lion, staring at Peter and licking its lips. The lion roared so loud that it knocked Peter right off his chair. The big cat jumped to the floor. Peter was up on his feet, running through the house with the lion a whiskers length behind. He ran upstairs and dove under a bed. The lion tried to squeeze under, but got his head stuck. Peter scrambled out, ran from the bedroom, slammed the door behind him, and he stood in the hall with Judy gasping for breath. I don't think, said Peter in between gasps of air, that I want to play this game anymore. But we have to, said Judy, as she helped Peter back down the stairs. I'm sure that's what the instructions mean. That lion won't go away until one of us wins. There's the lion under the bed. Peter stood next to the card table. Can't we just call the zoo and have him taken away? From upstairs came the sounds of growling and clawing over the bed at the bedroom door. Or maybe we could wait till Father comes home. No one would come from the zoo because they wouldn't believe us, said Judy. And you know how upset Mother would be if there was a lion in the bedroom. We started this game, now we're going to have to finish it. Peter looked down at the game board. What if Judy rolled a 7? Then there'd be 2 lions. For an instant, Peter thought he was going to cry. Then he sat up firmly in his chair and said, okay, let's play. Judy picked up the dice, rolled an 8, and moved her piece. Monkeys steal food, miss 1 turn, she read. And then from the kitchen suddenly came the sounds of banging pots, falling jars. The children ran in to see a dozen monkeys tearing the room apart. Oh boy, said Peter. This would upset Mother even more than the lion. Quick, said Judy, back to the game. Peter took his turn. Thank heavens he landed on a blank space and he rolled again. Monsoon season begins. Lose 1 turn. Little raindrops began to fall in the living room. Then a roll of thunder shook the walls and scared the monkeys out of the kitchen. The rain began to fall in buckets as Judy took the dice. Guy gets lost. Lose 1 turn. The rain suddenly stopped. The children turned to see a man hunched over a map. Oh dear, I see a spot of bad luck now, he mumbled. Perhaps a left turn here. No, a right turn here. Yes, absolutely. I think a right turn, maybe. Excuse me, said Judy, but the guy just ignored her. Around here, then over. No, over here, around this. Yes, good, but then. Judy shrugged her shoulders and handed Peter the dice. 4, 5, 6, he counted. Bitten by a tsetse fly, contract sleeping sickness, lose 1 turn. Judy heard a faint buzzing noise and watched a small insect land on Peter's nose. Peter lifted his hand to brush the bug away, but then stopped, gave a tremendous yawn, and fell sound asleep. His head was on the table. Peter, wake up, cried Judy, but it was no use. She grabbed the dice, moved to a blank. She rolled again and waited in amazement. Rhinoceros stampede, go back 2 spaces. At last, as fast as he had fallen asleep, Peter awoke. Together they listened to a rumble in the hallway. It grew louder and louder. Suddenly a herd of rhinos charged through the living room and into the dining room, crushing all the furniture in their path. Peter and Judy covered their ears as sounds of splintering wood and breaking china filled the house. All right, we're going to leave it there. We're going to have to do part 2 next week on Monday. What's going to happen with this adventure? I hope you enjoyed Jumanji. Right, we're up to chapter 22, Along the Corridor. Well, sighed Mr. Willy Wonka. 2 naughty little children gone, 3 good little children left. I think we'd better get out of this room quickly before we lose anyone else. But Mr. Wonka, said Charlie Bucket anxiously, will Violet Beauregard ever be all right again, or will she always be a blueberry? They'll dejuice her in no time flat, declared Mr. Wonka. They'll roll her into the dejuicing machine and she'll come out as thin as a whistle. But will she be blue all over? Asked Charlie. She'll be purple, said Mr. Wonka. A fine rich purple from head to toe. But there you are. That's what comes from chewing disgusting gum all day long. If you think like gum is so disgusting, said Mike TV, then why do you make it in your factory? I do wish you wouldn't mumble, said Mr. Wonka. I can't hear a word you're saying. Come on, off we go. Hurry up, follow me. We're going into the corridors again. And so saying, Mr. Wonka scuttled along to the far end of the inventing room and went out through a small secret door hidden behind a lot of pipes and stoves. The 3 remaining children, Veruca Salt, Mike TV, and Charlie Bucket, together with the 5 remaining grown-ups, followed after him. Charlie Bucket saw they were now back in one of those long pink corridors with many other pink corridors leading out of it. Mr. Wonka was rushing along in front, turning left and right and left. And Grandpa Joe was saying, "Oh, keep a good hold of me hand, Charlie. It would be terrible if we got lost in here." Mr. Wonka was saying, "No time for any more messing about. We'll never get anywhere at this rate. We've been going." Then on he rushed down the endless pink corridors with his black top hat perched on the top of his head and his plum-coloured velvet coattails flying up behind him like flags in the wind. They passed a door in the wall. "No time to go in," shouted Mr. Wonka. "Press on, press on." They passed another door, then another, and another, and there were doors every 20 paces or so along the corridor now, and they all had something written on them, and strange clanking noises could be heard from behind several of them, and delicious smells came wafting through the keyholes, and sometimes little jets of coloured steam shot out from the cracks underneath. Grandpa, Joe, and Charlie were half running and half walking to keep up with Mr. Wonka, but they were able to read what it said on quite a few of the doors as they hurried by. "Edible marshmallow pillows," it said on one of them. "Marshmallow pillows are terrific," shouted Mr. Wonka as he dashed by. "They'll be all the rage when I get them into the shops. No time to go in, though. No time to go in." "Lickable wallpaper for nurseries," it said on the next door. "Lovely stuff, lickable wallpaper," cried Mr. Wonka, rushing past. "There's pictures of fruits on it. Bananas, apples, oranges, grapes, pineapples, and strawberries and snozzberries." "Snozzberries?" said Mike TV. "Don't interrupt," said Mr. Wonka. "The wallpaper has pictures of all the fruit printed on it, and when you lick the picture of the banana, it tastes like a banana. If you lick a strawberry, it tastes like a strawberry, and if you lick a snozzberry, it tastes exactly like a snozzberry." "What does a snozzberry taste like?" "You're mumbling again," said Mr. Wonka. "Speak louder next time. On we go, hurry up." "Hot ice creams for cold days," it said on one of the next door. "Extremely useful for winter," said Mr. Wonka, rushing on. "Hot ice creams warm you up no end in freezing weather. I also make hot ice cubes for putting in hot drinks. Hot ice cubes make hot drinks hotter." "Cows that give chocolate milk," it said on the next door. "Ah, my pretty little cows," cried Mr. Wonka. "How I love those cows." "But why can't we see them?" asked Veruca Salt. "Why do we have to go rushing past on all these lovely rooms?" "We shall stop in time," cried Mr. Wonka. "Don't be so madly impatient." "Fizzy lifting drinks," it said on the next door. "Those are fabulous," cried Mr. Wonka. "They fill you with bubbles, and the bubbles are full of a special kind of gas, and this gas is so terrifically lifting that it lifts you right off the ground just like a balloon. And up you go until your head hits the ceiling, and there you stay." "But how do you come down again?" asked Charlie. "You do a burp, of course," said Mr. Wonka. "You do a great big long rude burp, and up comes the gas, and down comes you. But don't drink it outdoors. There's no knowing how high up you'll be carried if you do that. I gave some to an old Oompa Loompa once and out in the backyard, and he went up and disappeared out of sight. It was very sad. I've never seen him since." "He should have burped," Charlie said. "Of course he should have burped," said Mr. Wonka. "I stood there shouting, 'Burp, you silly Oompa Loompa, burp, or you'll never come down again.' But he didn't, or couldn't, or wouldn't. I don't know which. Maybe he was too polite. He must be on the moon by now." On the next door it said, "Square sweets that look round." "Wait," cried Mr. Wonka, skidding suddenly to a halt. "I'm very proud of my square seats that look round. Let's take a peek." Chapter 23. Square sweets that look round. Everybody stopped and crowded to the door. The top half of the door was made of glass. Grandpa Joe lifted Charlie up so that he could get a better view. And looking in, Charlie saw a long table, and on the table there were rows and rows of small square-shaped sweets. The sweets looked very much like square sugar lumps, except that each one had a funny little pink face painted on one side. At the end of the table, a number of Oompa Loompas were busily painting more faces on more sweets. "There you are," cried Mr. Wonka. "Square sweets that look round." "They don't look round to me," said Mike TV. "They look square," said Veruca Salt. "They look completely square." "But they are square," said Mr. Wonka. "I never said they weren't." "But you said they were round," said Veruca Salt. "I never said anything of the sort. I said they looked round." "But they don't look round," said Veruca. "They look square." "They look round," insisted Mr. Wonka. "They most certainly do not look round," cried Veruca Salt. "Veruca, darling," said Mr. Salt, "pay no attention to Mr. Wonka. He's lying to you." "My dear old fish," said Mr. Wonka, "go and boil your head." "How dare you speak to me like that?" shouted Mrs. Salt. "Oh, do be quiet," said Mr. Wonka. "Now watch this." He took a key from his pocket and locked the door and flung it open. And suddenly, at the sound of the door opening, all the rows of little square sweets looked quickly round to see who was coming in. The tiny faces actually turned towards the door and stared at Mr. Wonka. "There you are," he cried triumphantly. "They're looking round. There's no arguments about it. They are square sweets that look round." "Oh, by golly, he's right," said Grandpa Joe. "Come on," said Mr. Wonka, starting off down the corridor. "On we go. We mustn't dawdle. Butterscotch and butter gin," it said on the door as they passed. "Now that sounds a little more interesting," said Mr. Salt, Veruca's father. "Glorious stuff," said Mr. Wonka. "The Oompa Loompas all adore it. Makes them tiddly. Listen, you can hear them now, and they are hooping it up." Shrieks of laughter and snatches of singing could be heard coming through the closed door. "They're drunk as lords," said Mr. Wonka. "They're drinking butterscotch and soda. They like that best of all. Butter gin and tonic is also very popular. Please follow me. We mustn't keep stopping like this." He turned left, he turned right, then came down to a long flight of stairs. Mr. Wonka slid down the banisters. The three children did the same. Mrs. Salt and Mrs. TV, the only woman now left in the party, were getting very out of breath. Mrs. Salt was a big, fat creature with short legs, and she was blowing like a rhinoceros. "This way!" cried Mr. Wonka, turning left at the bottom of the stairs. "Go slower!" panted Mrs. Salt. "Impossible!" said Mr. Wonka. "We should never get there in time if I did." "Get where?" asked Veruca Salt. "Never mind," said Mr. Wonka. "You just wait and see." Chapter 24 is Veruca in the Nut Room, and we are going to read about that next week. So have a great weekend, everybody. Enjoy your day today, and we'll catch you all on Monday for another Tawa School story time. Look after yourselves, be kind to one another, and ka kite anō.